Hello and welcome to this free mandolin lesson aimed at beginner and intermediate players, and we're going to be taking a look at the Bluegrass banjo tune Fireball Male, sort of made famous by Earl Scruggs with his new invention of the banjo roll with the three fingers. The core melody that sounds a bit like this. We're going to change that into a more bluegrass mandolin style arrangement. So we're going to add more notes, we're going to add some slides and blues notes and pull-offs and hammer-ons, and we're also going to double stop a lot of that melody. And that will eventually sound a bit like this. Everything we talk about in this lesson is included in a free PDF, which is linked in the video description below, so you don't have to do any of this by ear. You can have all the tabs and music in front of you while you learn this. So as this is aimed at beginner through to intermediate players, I'm going to structure this video so that it starts at the easiest melody, and each melody is a little bit harder than the one before, so you can just stop learning at your current level. So you're not trying to learn the hard one first. We're going to learn the easy one first, and that is just the core melody to Fireball Male. We're in the key of G, and we'll just dive in. So this is in 4 main phrases. It's in sort of 4 lines of music, and each line is its own little phrase. So the first phrase sounds a bit like this. 2, 3, 4, 1. So nice and simple, just O's, 2's and 5's. So if I just play that again one more time. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Next phrase is very similar. Last 2 notes of the first line. So this will be after 2, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. That's it. That's the second phrase. I'm just going to fly through this. We'll have a full play of it in a second. The third phrase starts with the last 3 notes of the second line. So after 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. And then the last phrase, again, starts on the last bar of the third line. So I'll just try that last phrase. So this is the last measure of the third line. 3, 4, 1. So the whole thing is not massively difficult. It's all in first position. Lots of O's, 2's and 5's, and goes up to this high 3. Just so this video doesn't end up being really, really long, I'm just going to dive in and play that now once through, and I'm overdubbing a guitar so you can hear the chords behind it, but the chords are nice and simple. The chords are just G and D. So this is the core melody to Fireball Male. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's it. That is the melody that the banjo's playing. There are words to this as well. That's the melody we're working from. So if you haven't quite got that, just hit rewind and just keep playing that little riff round until you feel a bit more comfortable. So now we can start making that a bit more interesting. Now, if you listen to a banjo player, they have 3 fingers that are constantly sort of always playing a string. So with the banjo, you get constant 8th notes, but their constant 8th notes are always sort of other strings. We can't really do that on the mandolin. So when we have notes that last quite a long time, think of the opening phrase. 2, 3, 4, 1. That lasts 5 beats, and in the scheme of playing with other musicians, that note strength drops off quite quickly. We lose that note. So we want to do something to keep the noise going. And where banjo players would sort of do they would kind of do a little roll with their 3 fingers. What we do is we just sit on 8th notes. If it's a slower tune, we can tremolo, but this is quite a quick tune. So we can just fill that gap with 8th notes like this. So down, down, or down, or down, or down. Keep the core of the melody the same. So we are just filling in that gap with 8th notes, nothing more complicated. You just keep your right hand moving and keep on the same note in your left hand. So without going through each phrase, maybe just take a little pause and have a little play. Let's play it now with the guitar and the metronome, and then we can move on to the really, really bluegrass sounding variations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So the next thing we can do is we can start bluesing it up a bit. We can start adding some bend into notes, some hammer-ons. So take the very first phrase. Instead of going 0, 0, 2, 5, why can't we start on a 4 and slide into 5? Just get that sound. Just to delay the start of the note. And then here on the B, why can't we slide in? And then, just to make it even more complicated, in that second bar, slide into the B and then pull off to the 0. So, slide into the B and then 1 to 0. So that opening phrase now becomes like this. So really cool sounding. Just adding those 2 slight changes, we just slide into one and pull off to the other. Changes. Quite a twee sounding. Into. And then if you do similar things across the whole tab, and if you're looking at the tab, anytime a note has just like an angled line before it, that's what I mean by, so that you slide into the note, that's the music way of describing it, just a little line into it. So you could put that slide in on every single note. It's a bit much. Just gets a bit too much. So you just pick the odd one that you like the sound of. I've picked the one I like the sound of. I've also added a couple of hammer-ons. So instead of sliding into a note, so on the 3rd line, you could slide into the 3. I've actually done a hammer-on. So you start on the 2, hammer on to the 3. Same thing happens on the last line. Hammer, hit the 4, and hammer on to the 5. And then at the very end, I've added just a little blues turnaround. Just because I like filling that gap with a little blues. So we're starting to get more complex. Rather than playing through it, I'm just going to dive in. And so you can hear it with the guitar accompanying it and see if you can play along. So now we've got 2 layers of complexity. We've got filling out the gap and we've got some slides and pull-offs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Our final variation, and I will take you through it in slightly smaller steps this time rather than rushing to the playthrough at the end, is we're going to add some double stops. If you've never added double stops before, it's all to do with arpeggios. So the opening phrase is a G chord. A G chord is made up of G, B and D. So the band is playing a G chord while you go. And your melody note is a G. You're playing the 5th fret here. And to add a double stop, you want to add one of the other notes of the chord. So the G's already being taken up by the melody, so you generally want to add a B or a D to turn that into a double stop. So you could go... You can add a D underneath, or you can add a B above it, or the D above it, which is quite hard. You can also just add a G. All you want to make sure is your double stop is another note from the chord that's currently being played. So for the opening phrase, I've gone for the B. Notice how I slid into that as well. And then I keep the same slide and pull off. So just the one double stop in the first phrase. The second phrase, same double stop. Now we do a little position shift. So I've got a 5 and 7 for a D. So the melody note is the D, and I've chosen to add an A underneath it. You can either do that with your ring and pinky, but that's quite difficult. So you might want to do it like me with your ring and middle. So your middle slides to 5 and your ring finger slides to 7. Or you could even do it with middle and index. There's 3 combinations of finger that could do that 5 and 7 double stop, and it's completely up to you. So the second phrase, picking up from the end of the first line, is this. 1, 2. Then the third phrase goes up high. Back to normal position here. And here's a slightly new technique. So on the first one I hit the 0 and 4. And then hammer onto the 5. So you get that sound. So the third phrase, starting at the end of the second line, so we're down on 5 and 7, is this. 3, 4, 1, 2. And then our last phrase, starting from there, we're back low, so this time I've added a B. I quite like that. So again, just adding double stops that are notes from the current chord, following the chord, so when it moves to D, I move to D, F sharp and A. So I added an A underneath. So now it's time to play that arrangement through. I think we'll play it twice round straight away to give you 2 goes at it, but each time I will just stop and count us in again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So there you have a beginner right through to intermediate, 4 levels of difficulty for Fireball Male. I hope you've enjoyed learning. It's a very common jam session tune, this one, so it's good to have in your fingers, whatever level it is. We do these lessons every month. I hope you enjoyed them. Please hit like and subscribe while you're here, and head over to mandomike.com for all the other free lessons we've ever done, and we'll see you next month.